Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Team Enough Town Hall to discuss crime guns in our communities. Team Enough is super excited to be having this conversation. We have youth members from Chicago in Team Enough. We have youth leaders from Brave. We have people from Brady as well here to join us in this conversation as we tackle the issue of gun violence. As we know, Team Enough is a youth-led initiative through the Brady campaign, and we work with youth from all over the country to address the intersections of gun violence, whether it's mass shootings, inner city violence, domestic violence, etc. We use and amplify youth voices to make sure that we are dismantling this issue of gun violence that we know is disproportionately affecting Black and Brown communities at disproportionate rates. Right now, we know with over 8,000 crime guns already recovered this year in Chicago, we know that enough is enough. And tonight we'll be having an action-oriented community conversation on how we can end gun violence. During this panel discussion, we'll have youth leaders from Team Enough, Brady, and we will address the ways that guns are trafficked into Black and Brown communities in Chicago, as well as discuss solutions as we identify ways that we can combat guns trafficked in our communities. I'm really excited to introduce our panelists. Tonight we have Zion Kinnison, Kira Dashisel, Simone Mitchell, Trevon Bosley, Kelly Sampson, and Delphine Cherry. So right now, I'm going to open it up to each one of them to explain how they've got involved with Team Enough in gun violence prevention. And I'm going to start off with Trevon Bosley.
Hello, everybody. My name is Trevon. I got involved with gun violence prevention back in April of 2006. My brother Terrell Bosley, he was shot and killed at church while getting ready for band rehearsal. And that was my first introduction to gun violence. And ever since my brother's death, I've made it my life's goal to go out to the community and try to become change. So I joined a group in Chicago called the Brave Youth Leaders, which stands for Bold Resistance Against Violence Everywhere. And basically, we're a violence prevention organization out of St. Sabina that goes around, that does rallies, protests, marches, petitions, as well as giveaways and different things just to try to help the community and try to decrease gun violence. And, throughout the years, I've lost more friends as well as I lost other family members. But my main goal in life is just to try to protect as many people as I can.
Thank you so much, Trayvon, for all your work that you do in Chicago. And I'm so sorry that we have to meet under these circumstances. Passing it over to Zion to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Zion. I originally got started with gun prevention when I was about, I want to say maybe 13 or 14 years old. I was actually hanging a lot with Simone at the time and her family. They did a lot of things as far as gun violence and things like that. So we went, on marches. We did our own fundraising events and things like that. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Zion. Simone?
Hi, everybody. So I got involved with gun violence, I want to say at least about 8 years ago, about 7, 8 years ago. My uncle passed away. He was shot and killed in front of my grandmother's house. And before that, my auntie actually passed away of gun violence at the age of 16, and I never got the chance to meet her. And basically, me and my grandma and my mom, we all kind of just started hammering down on stuff, going to events, going to rallies, having events, just getting stuff done, a lot of crying, a lot of tears. And it kind of formed my life and made me the way I am now. And it's just, even though under the circumstances, I'm glad to be where I'm at, doing what I'm doing.
So sorry to hear that, Simone. And I thank you so, so much for participating in this conversation today and even being involved in this space, because I know sometimes it can be very difficult. Passing it over to Kira.
Hi, my name is Kira Dashiell. I recently got involved with the gun prevention program. I think I was like 8th grader, you could say freshman. My niece Simone here and really my Gigi, Delphine Cherry, we all got involved basically because the gun violence needs to stop. Like I had my cousin who was in college, he got killed when he came back to visit, and it was just so unexpected. Like a person who wanna go off and do better in their life. He was on the basketball team, playing D1 and everything, and it just kind of took a toll on me. And also when my friend passed away, it was just like, dang, like when do this stop? Like a prevention, it really brought me to here today to actually be a part of this team, make some changes, see the progress and the growth throughout the years.
Thank you so much. Kelly?
Thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be here with all of you. And for my story, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm a little bit older. So it was during the 90s when we had a particular issue with gun violence. So it was kind of always in the background and kind of impacted the way my parents raised me, what I could and couldn't do. But I didn't really get involved in this movement until 2013. And at the time I was working for a corporate law firm, wasn't really enjoying it too much, and didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. And then the opportunity came for me to join Brady, and I jumped on it because it was a chance to do something that I really cared about with my law degree. And that's when I got started in this movement.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Delphine Cherry. I think you're on mute. Sorry, we can't hear you.
How are you guys? Good to see everybody. I got into this space in 2013. Actually, I lost my first child in 1992 at a movie theater. She was hit by a stray bullet coming out the theater by a 14-year-old. I went to a deep depression. Continued to raise my kids. Tyler was born 9 months later. Raised the kids. Tried to forgive the person that did it. Him being 14, looking like a kid. But 20 years later, to Tyler's birthday, it was 3 days before Christmas, my son gets shot down in front of my home. And that took me to another space. I met Brady. Brady came to town, and I felt like I needed to be in that space Brady was in. And that's when I got my boots on the ground and I started doing what I was doing. I joined Purpose Over Pain. I spent a lot of time in the city. I'm on Brady board. I'm also with Illinois Council Against Handguns, GPAC. And I started my own foundation, which is called TY Tender Youth. And we do a lot of events trying to get dialogues with the younger people so that we can get a hammer on the gun violence. So that's the space I came from.
Thank you so much. An introduction of myself, Alea Eastman. I am from Parkland, Florida. I got involved with gun violence prevention after surviving the shooting at my high school. But I recognized that the conversation of gun violence prevention was really one-sided, and it only focused on mass shootings or school shootings, which is only about 2% of gun violence as a whole. So I decided to speak up to make sure that we're actually addressing the root causes of gun violence and giving space to those that look like me, that are disproportionately impacted by this issue, because I understand it from two sides. I lost my uncle to gun violence in Brooklyn, New York a few years ago. So it's really important that we're amplifying these youth voices, because we know gun violence is a leading cause of death for Black youth, and now recently is the leading cause of death for youth across the board. So I'm really excited to open up this conversation and hear from our young people of Chicago, of the work that they're doing and what they want to see done. So I'm going to start off the first question. What are the actions that you've taken to reclaim your community, and what do you think has been the most effective? So I'm going to start off with Trayvon.
Well, one effective measure, I'll just talk about two. Two of the things that we've been doing through Brave, one has been giveaways through the pandemic. The main thing that we've seen, is a lot of people in Chicago and Black communities are impoverished. And with the pandemic, that didn't change these issues. So, people with food security problems, financial problems, all these things going on, we tried to do the best that we could to help. So like for senior citizens, we started doing like delivering packages and delivering groceries to them because many of them didn't want to go outside. We started doing like giveaways on the street as far as like just masks or different resources that can help out, um, in any way possible, and just to try to help people's lives and make them easier, as well as we've been mentoring. That's kind of one of the biggest things that we've been doing, is trying to take like at least one or two youth in the community under our wing and just try to keep them on a right path, and just helping them with whatever situation they may need, to try to keep them away from gun violence, keep them away from dangerous situations. Even though we know, you can be gunned down for doing anything, we try to make sure that we can keep everyone out of those situations, or even close to being in situations like that. So just one or the two of the things that we've been really trying to do throughout the pandemic is just giveaways and mentoring.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that work. I also advocate so much to make sure that other organizations are also doing mutual aid. I think mutual aid is such a huge part of giving back to our community and making sure that folks have the resources that they need. So thank you so much for that work. Zion, what about you? What other actions have you taken to reclaim your community, and what have you seen be the most effective?
Other actions that I've taken as far as wanting to reclaim my community with the effects of gun violence is that, I've done a lot of research on gun violence, because I know it doesn't just happen here, it happens in other places. And in some places, it's not spoken about. And so I've I've gotten some statistics, I've gotten some facts, and I've always been a talkative person. So I tell people about it. I talk to my parents, I talk to my school administrators, I talk to other people in my community, and I let them know, because where I stay, there's a lot of gun violence. Where I go to school, there's a lot of gun violence, and it's sad to say it really affects the students. It really affects the people in the community. Things that I've done and that I feel like are effective as far as, helping people with gun violence. I speak on gun violence because I've experienced it, my family has, and my school really has. So I speak to other students as far as gun violence, and I let them know, I'm a listening ear. I'm somebody, who you can relate to. I'm not somebody that's, willing to hurt you. So I'm really just speaking on things, and, my school and the administrators at my school are going as far as creating events to let students know they're not alone as far as gun violence.
Absolutely. Kira, what about you? What actions have you taken to reclaim your community, and what have you seen be the most effective?
The actions I have taken to regain my community is basically like a mentor, and this also thing is called Fun Place. Like me and a group of my friends and a couple of administrators at my school, well, the college that I attend, which is UIS, we like go around and ask kids like how they been, or check on them, basically to see like how their mental state, because they might not feel like they could always go to an adult and talk about the situation. They want to talk to a person that's their age. So if it's a person at their age or just a little bit older than them, we could actually give them knowledge of what is really happening and what can really change. The fun place is like basically it's a little flyer that shows like, oh, we got food, like people who don't like he said, like Trayvon was like about the pandemic, like people don't have food, people don't have places to sleep, people don't have anything like clothes or hygiene products and stuff like that. They could come to the fun place, they could have fun, play a game of basketball, talk to one another, get to know one another. They can even pick up free food and come get a couple toothbrushes, a little backpack or anything, just in case they needed to make that change. And let them know that this gun violence thing is really not nothing to play with, and we're really here for them.
Thank you so much. Simone?
Actions that I've taken. So I attend Victor J. Andrew High School, which is in Tilling Park, the south suburbs. And if many of you don't know who Andrew is a mainly predominantly white school. So, and then there's about 10% Black people there, not even. And there's been a lot of, altercation and disagreements at the school and people feeling unheard. So what I did was basically, I started a group called PIV, Power and Voice, basically for not only Black people, anybody that feels like they're not being heard throughout the school and feel like they can't talk about things that they can regularly talk about with anybody. They can come to the meeting, we talk, we eat, we laugh, we have fun. And we just blow off steam where you're not getting judged for anything you have to say, or you don't have to feel that people are not listening to you. And from there, we take steps to kind of peer mediate and get rid of these things that are going on in the school, and making sure there are, and we invite kind of our deans and our counselors to come and sit in, not to be judging or to come down these kids' throat, but to hear their problems and to hear the struggles of what's going on. And another thing that we did was kind of, we would have my group, PIV, will go to these other meetings like the Muslim Association that we had in my school. And we will also all collectively talk about, you know, problems that are going on between other students, between staff, between, you know, because it's not only about students, it's also these adults that we also have to get a handle on, because people think that there's student bullying, but in all actuality, coming from experience, I've been teased and picked on by teachers, and that's not an acceptable thing. And from that group, we normally, sometimes my mom will take us out, or we'll have Friendsgiving and just have events where people just feel like they can talk and just be included in something, so they don't have to find outside resources to, you kind of like, you know, other ways to handle things. So.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. I wish I had something like that in my high school. Delphine, I'm very interested to hear what actions you've taken, because I know you've been very active in this space after losing 2 children.
Yeah. Well, one of those actions was at Andrew High School that me, Tamika, what's known as Mom, we sat down with counselors so that they could start this dialogue of communication with kids, because you're different, you know, black and brown, you're different. It does not make you not equal to everybody else. My son died. I actually got on my boots and I got on the ground. I joined Purpose Over Pain. I joined Brady. Brady actually gave me my platform to be where I'm at today. But I actively work in the community, not only in my community, but in Chicago. I'm in the south suburbs, so we don't have a lot of resources that Chicago do. And that's one of the problems, like Trey said with the COVID. You know, all of my kids caught COVID trying to make sure everybody else was okay, you know, delivering packages, delivering to me. And another thing that the TY Foundation do is we give away to the less fortunate ones that's going to college. We take a suitcase and we fill it up with their needs, and we, you know, make sure they have something to start off when they go to that dorm. And then we also do journals. I very, very, very impacted with people that are being murdered in the streets. I have one-on-one with the victim's family. We give out journals, and the first thing I tell them, write down everything you do, even the name of the bullet, the name of the gun, the witnesses, because later on in life, you're gonna need these information. I even go to court with some of the victims and just be support for them. Do the crime victim applications that Purpose Over Pain started to make sure the applications are in. So you get up every morning and say, what is my purpose? And every day I have a purpose. Every day I'm doing something to make my community better. I want to say 3 days ago, last Wednesday, there was a shooting on my block. I counted 12 shots, and I'm like, this doesn't happen on my block. But when I count the many times that it's been a shooting, it's been 6. So what are you doing about it? I get the phone call, Delphine, what are we going to do about it? So we're going to open up the community and say, we need to talk about this, because we don't want shooting on our block. You know what I mean? My son was killed on my block. 3 other guys were killed on my block. So even though I work in Chicago, I still work in the south suburbs trying to make a difference. And my thing is, hurt people. Until we get a handle on getting to the solution of why these young people are doing what they're doing, we're going to continue to have gun violence. So, like tomorrow, I'll be in North Park University. I'm all over the place. So next week, I might be in St. Louis. So I do whatever I can to help these young people to have productive lives. That's my story.
Thank you so much, Delphine. I also want to remind the audience that at the end of this panel discussion, we'll have a Q&A session. We'll answer a few audience questions. So there's a Q&A tab that should be at the top of your screen. So feel free to put any questions that you might have for our panelists up there. The next question is for Kelly. What responsibility, if any, do corporations selling guns have in keeping our communities free from gun violence?
A lot. That's like the short answer, and then I'll unpack it. So just there are so many different ways to talk about the responsibility that corporations have, and just one level. And I love, like you said, Alea, earlier, that Team Enough is working kind of at the intersection of gun violence and so many other issues, because one of the ways that corporations have responsibility is the money that they put behind lobbying and trying to impact our democracy in the way that we can have our votes impact the gun laws that we have, the gun policies that we have. And so there's a huge issue around corporate lobbying through groups like the NRA, but then also direct contributions that impacts what Congress doesn't do. But in a more direct way, they have a huge responsibility for allowing guns to get trafficked into communities, for allowing guns to go missing off of shelves. And at Brady, we call that crime guns. And basically what that is those are guns that are either used in a crime or guns whose possession in and of itself is a crime. And what a lot of these corporations do, so the Smiths and Wessons of the world, they sell their guns to distributors who sell them to manufacturers who sell them to mom and pop dealers. And every time one of those guns is used in a crime, the corporations get a trace. So the trace goes all the way up. When they find the bullet, they're able to trace the gun to the store that it came from, and the store can trace it to the distributor, who can trace it to the manufacturer, which is the corporation. So they know when they're selling guns to stores that are negligent, or stores that are irresponsible, or stores that don't follow the law when they're selling firearms. They know this. But oftentimes they just keep selling to those same stores because there's no mechanism to hold them accountable, because they've successfully lobbied Congress to be able to pass laws that protect them. So part of what we're trying to do through our crime guns work is hold corporations accountable and saying, if you're going to sell a product, you have to sell it responsibly. If you're selling your guns to manufacturers or to dealers or to distributors that you know are allowing those guns to go to traffickers or allowing guns to come up missing, which usually means they just sold them off the books, then you have an obligation not to sell to those distributors. And the subtitle of this panel is "Where Are the Guns Coming From?" And Chicago is a really an example of a city where corporations have a huge responsibility for what's going on, because the city itself has very strong gun laws. There aren't Cabela's and all these gun stores in the city. And yet there's a huge problem with gun crime. And what we've been able to find out is that a lot of those guns that are coming into the city are coming through the sort of commerce capitalist channels. And so that's not a problem that you can resolve simply by saying, as people often try to do, that it's a problem with culture. That's something you have to deal with at the corporations by holding them accountable. And so that's where, it's really important to be able to understand where guns are coming from, what corporations are responsible for them, and then being able to counteract the influence that they have through their dollars on Congress and on our lawmakers. So that's the kind of longer answer. And then the final way the corporations have a responsibility for guns and gun violence is the marketing that they use. And a good parallel to this is tobacco companies. Like, we're all kind of familiar with these commercials, like the Truth Campaign, and all the ways that the tobacco companies have had to be held responsible for the fact that for a really long time, they lied to people about the impact of cigarettes and about the impact of tobacco. And gun companies, not all of them, but a lot of them do a really similar thing in their marketing. If you look, they'll say things like, this is going to make you more of a man, or getting this gun is going to make you safer. And that's just not true. Like, it's just not true in any way. And yet they market it. And so the marketing is another area where corporations have a huge responsibility for the amount of guns that we see, the amount of gun violence that we see, and holding them accountable is a huge part of this issue.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kelly. Delphine, are there any gun stores in your community? If not, how are guns finding their way?
Yeah, there's two. There's one in Riverdale that we protest a lot on. A lot of crime guns was coming from the store in Riverdale. But then there's also another one on 159th, like in Tilly Park, which I just found out one gun that was used in the crime came from that particular store. But it's not hard to get guns in Chicago. Matter of fact, I got a call last week and said it was about ghost guns, and they was like, "Oh, that's been around for a long time. You late." And I'm like, "Well, where do you get them from?" "Oh, there's a guy I know that sells them." I'm like, "Really? Where?" Which they wouldn't give me that information. But when my son was murdered, I wanted to trace the gun, so I took my 12-year-old grandson to Chuck's in Riverdale to see if I can purchase a gun and get a gun card. And I remember the young man saying, "Oh, let your grandson come in. Let him see the guns. Oh, he would really like them." I'm like, "No, he's staying in the car. I'm coming in." And you're right. They do influence you to make this seem glamorous about having a gun. You need a gun. You're talking to a 12-year-old. I'm an adult. Don't talk to him. Talk to me. Well, let him go to the range. Let him see how the range works. No, that's not going to work. So I ended up in Indiana at a gun show to buy guns. And I did buy guns. I bought guns, ammunition, and I had a person with me that did not have a gun card. And they were trying to sell him a gun. I bought 2 legal guns and I bought 1 illegal gun. And I was able to pass the border from Indiana to Chicago and bring those guns home. I'm actually 6 minutes from Indiana. And that's how easy it is to buy a gun. A week later, I went to Creek, met the guy. He opened up his trunk, and there's bags with people's names on it with their guns. So it's not hard to get guns in Chicago. We just need to stop it. And that's all I have to say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Delphine. Trevon, I'm really interested to know, what do you think police misunderstand about gun violence in your community?
Well, I mean, just in general, police as well as other people from outside of Chicago, people don't understand all the factors that come together to create the gun violence that we deal with. Everyone just assumes that, oh, someone's mad, they have a gun, they shoot somebody. No, like you don't understand the poverty within the community that led this person to go get a gun. You don't understand the education system where most of my classes, I had some history books that the president that they went to was George Bush, his first term. They didn't even reach Obama. Like they don't understand the failing school system, the lack of resources that we have within our communities that push people to go commit crimes just to survive. It's not more so of a, oh, I want to do bad, I want to kill people, I want to hurt people. It's a need to survive. Like I heard an analogy once. Basically, if you have 2 lions in a cage and you give them no meat or no food or anything, they're going to eat each other. And that's the same way in Chicago. You are literally putting people in a situation where we give them no resources, no food, no money, no nothing to survive, and we expect you to just go about life and live normally. So I think people misunderstand that violence is a problem that stems from a lot of other things, and people need to understand that you can make a change by giving resources, by going out in the community, or actually starting to try to understand the people in the community. So I mean that for people outside of Chicago, the police, as well as anybody that just watches the news and hears numbers but doesn't actually understand what goes on in these communities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Zion, I'm really interested to hear your perspective on that as well, about what do you think police misunderstand about your community, or not just police, but people just outside of Chicago?
Well, I feel as if, they misunderstand the fact that most people in my community that are walking around holding guns are really young. That they misunderstand that their situation, I would say, because most young people they don't understand, what actually happens when they shoot that gun. They don't understand the consequences that come afterwards after shooting that gun. Most of them think, oh, I look cool or I look raw just at the fact with holding a gun or I'm carrying one around and I'm gonna post pictures and take videos with it. Everybody thinks it's all cool and dandy until it misfires or any something happens by accident or you're the last person with it and everybody's looking back to you. Most people in my community, they really don't understand how what comes with having a gun. And I feel like police can in most circumstances use that against them because you know police in my neighborhood, they do racially profile them. They do take advantage of them because they get them caught up in situations. Some cops, they will actually be the ones to sell them the gun. I want to see you fail. Most young people just need an aid. They need an ear. And, police officers, I would assume, you would be that aid and ear to these young people because you want to see them do better. You want to see the gun violence end. But in my community, they kind of promote it. They kind of help it because, they don't stop them and they don't help them. When you see somebody with a gun, you just kind of think it's normal walking around the streets. And I feel like, they're really misheard, they're misread. And I feel like that the people in my community could really benefit if they just help one another, if they just listen, especially the police in my community.
Thank you so much for that. Simone, what do you think the police or just people outside of Chicago misunderstand about gun violence in your community?
I feel like the big thing is with people misunderstanding is the whole thing of being misunderstood. The most thing that any kid, anybody wants to know is to be heard, to be listened to. And when you don't get that, and when you're trying to tell somebody or somebody doesn't know how to tell what's wrong with them because they have never gotten that guidance or that parental figure or that just authority figure of this is not right or this is how you talk about your problems, this is how you handle things, this is how you should handle things, people find other avenues to handle those problems. And it's one of those things like Zion and Trevon said, people don't have these resources, they don't have it. So they feel like the only way out or this is their life, or people don't leave where their circumstances is because this is how they survive. This is how they live. This is the only thing they've known their whole life. So how do you just simply judge somebody based? You can't just do that because that's all they've known. Unless you sit there and walk their shoes and talk to them, you won't know. And then now you're wondering, oh, why did they just go do that? Because nobody was listening to them. Nobody was sitting there having a conversation with them. Nobody was teaching them. And if you see it, you should try to at least have that conversation with them. My mom is, I don't know if she wants me to talk about this, but my mom is a correctional officer. So she comes home every day. She tells me these stories about why these people do the things that they do. And the main thing I hear her say all the time is, no, they had nobody to talk to. They had nobody to go to. And that was the main reason. And I just feel like if people did more of that, then people will start, opening up and not bottling up their emotions. And then one day they're so mad, they just go do these things to people and ruin their life and someone else's.
Absolutely. We do need to be more supportive of one another and lend a listening ear to our peers more times than often. Kira, what about you? What do you think police or just people outside of Chicago misunderstand about gun violence in your community?
I believe that the police and people outside of my community misunderstood that guns are our protection at this point. We don't have role models like we used to back then, or like you guys, the older people, have back then. Like, as far as that, people is being raised and being taught the wrong way to use a gun. whether it's to kill a friend or to play a game with it or anything. It's the wrong way of use. And then when it comes to police brutality, they always think that either African American black male or just a female can automatically have a gun. But when it comes to the Caucasian, it's they let them run wild, but y'all automatically assume we have a gun. What is the difference? You have to look at both sides here. Like at this point, like you don't know whether you'll get shot by a cop or whether you'll get shot by a black man off the street. Whether it's a friend, a family member, whether you just sitting in your car, you just got pulled over for a ticket and they automatically assume that you reaching to get a gun, but you reaching in your glove department to get your wallet or get your state ID and your registration for your car. Like it's all about mental interpretation. It's all about being misunderstood. You have to look at it like, oh, well, let's see what they're gonna do. Everybody is scared for their life at this point because you don't know what's gonna happen. A person could shoot you. A person could, oh, I'm watching you from afar. A person could just come up to you out of nowhere. You wouldn't even know who they were or who they are. If we was using the gun the correct way, going to the gun range, being able to be taught the right way to use a gun, all about safety measures, then I think things would be a whole lot better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Trayvon, what advice do you have for organizations outside of your immediate community to support your work and support your mission to end gun violence in Chicago and in your community?
I mean, as far as just any advice for well, for my organization, if you want to supply any connections or resources or whatever, we will definitely take that for sure. Like even during the pandemic, we saw a problem with a lot of youth in our community who already struggled with the education system, as I spoke on before. But we had many of them were doing remote learning, and that wasn't working well for them. And we were trying to connect with a lot of teachers, retired teachers, or any teachers in general, to try to provide tutoring for these youth. Some of them are back in school now, but that is still something that we're still trying to get going, is just basically connecting tutors to many of the kids in our community to try to help them at least make it throughout high school, make it throughout grammar school, because if you can't graduate, getting a job and surviving in the real world is a lot harder than it needs to be. Also, advice just for other organizations, just go out in your community and actually know your community and the people within it, because the things that you do can have a huge impact on people's lives. Like whether that's just you checking in on a little boy across the street and just keeping an eye on him, asking him how school's going, how life's going. These little things can truly change the trajectory of someone's life. That might be the difference between him going to college or him being involved in a drive-by. Like you never know the impact that you can have. So make sure whatever you're doing in your community that you're actually reaching out to people and talking to people.
Absolutely. Zion, what advice do you have for organizations outside of your immediate community on how they can support your work to force positive change?
Advice I would, give those organizations would really just be, help in any way you see fit, help in any way, that you can help, because, a lot of the communities and a lot of the organizations in my community, they're not really so upfront as far as helping. They're really just I'm going to sit back and watch how this plays out instead of, taking initiative, because they speak a big game of wanting to see change and wanting to see better within the community. And, they don't do too much to help. But when somebody, brings a solution, a potential solution at that, it's kind of just it's always turned away. And I kind of question those organizations in my community, because how do you want to see a positive change if you're not willing to help change it? So that's really one of the big things in my opinion. And I will really piggyback off of what Trayvon said as far as, check on people, help people, listen, because that's a big thing in these communities. A lot of people aren't hearing you. A lot of people aren't there for you. They just really just need someone to be there, even if you're a stranger. you listen to strangers every day. If you take public transportation, or depending on your job title, if you work in the medical field, if you work anywhere. I mean, you listen to a stranger. I listen to strangers every day. I'm just that listening ear for people. You know, a smile won't hurt. A smile actually helps somebody. You might be doing somebody some good.
So much. Simone, what advice do you have for organizations based outside your immediate community in supporting your work to force positive change?
I really believe listening is key. Like, I can't say it enough. Like, listening is key, because the biggest thing, especially with me, like, all I be wanting all day is my mom. Can you listen to me? Can you listen to me? Ask me how my day going. Ask me what I learned at school. Ask me what I'm doing later. Ask me, why I picked these shoes, why I picked this outfit, just talk to them. Like, our simplest thing is have a conversation with them. That's the biggest thing. You could just walk down the hallway and be like, oh, I like your shoes. And that might brighten up somebody's day. And they could have been thinking about going home and doing the worst things possible. But just because you said that compliment to them could have changed their whole life in the way they see things. And it's just all about, like they said, taking initiative. And sometimes I'd be scared too, but sometimes you got to be the first person to do something. Sometimes you got to be the only person that's doing it. Because if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it?
Absolutely. Kira, what advice do you have for organizations based outside your community on how they can support your work to force positive change?
Basically, as everyone said, being that listening ear. Like, we definitely could create events, have people come out somewhere safe to get to know one another, to have fun, knowing what their life is about, or coming to this one event could change their life or brighten their day because they had somebody to be there to talk to, or get a good meal, get a nice drink, or make a friend, like, just to spread the word. Everywhere is not safe. So for a safe place, for a safe environment that kids or anyone could come out to and speak and talk about how they really feel, or have someone that connects to them, will be great and awesome for anybody.
Absolutely. I'm really interested to hear from the adults now. Kelly, how can fellow adults be allies to youth voices within the movement to end gun violence?
I think one thing that's important for my fellow adults to remember is that wisdom is not necessarily just about age, and that even though someone's younger than you, they can have a ton of wisdom. And I think especially when we're talking about gun violence prevention, like, I think even just hearing all of you all on the panel and your stories and the things that you through, like, yes, I'm 34 years old, so I'm older than all of you, but in terms of the experiences that you all have had, they're different from mine. And so there's wisdom there and things to teach me. And I think a lot of times when we're working with younger advocates, that's something to remember, because whether it's someone who's experienced a loss in their own family, or whether it's someone who's saying, I'm 16 years old, and so this is what my life has been like growing up in this era where there's a mass shooting on the news every week, they have something to teach. And so I think sometimes it can be easy to think that because of your age or because of your experience or because of your education that you know more. But I think it's important to remember that when it comes to this issue, people have things to teach us regardless of age, and that if we kind of put our heads together and put our experiences together, then we can have better solutions. And so just listen, to kind of echo what everyone said about helping. I think listening with an open mind is really important.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Delphine, what advice or how can fellow adults be allies to youth voices within this movement to end gun violence?
I want to start off first by saying education. It starts at home. So it's like if you're an adult and you know that your kids are being raised up in a gang environment, more than likely they're gonna end up being gang members. The educational piece I see And I'm gonna put that with the police department too. So if there's an issue at home with these children growing up, because they start at 8, 9 in the gangs, if the teachers, counselors can see this at a school point and notify that there's a problem, there's some mental issues going on with this particular kid, that collaboratively we all work together, transparent, to get these kids on the right track. I'm not going to say every police is dirty. We have good cops like we have bad cops. You know what happened to the DARE program and Officer Friendly that used to come talk to the kids, that now kids are afraid to talk to policemen. The kids are taught not to talk to the police. Don't say nothing to them. So we got to get to a dialogue where everybody, like he said in the message, unity. We have to have these conversations with our kids at a very young age. The teachers have to be involved. The medical institute have to be involved. Counselors have to be involved. As adults, we have to be the ones looking out for the kids to make sure that they are on the right track. And when they're not on the right track, get them the help that they really need to get on the right track. I mean, we can't save everybody, but we can always try to save as many as we can. I just remember when I was alive, he had a friend that his family very abusive. His father would fight his mother, and my son would leave the door open. And one day I asked, like, why do you keep leaving my door open? He's like, because he's coming over. And I'm like, why is he coming over? Him and his dad and mom is fighting again. And he would leave a pad on the floor for him to sleep. But then I go and try to address the issues with the parents about this child and this trauma. So when kids come to school, we don't know what they're going through at home. We just don't. And we should be able to, counselors should be able to pick up on if a child is in need. You know, that's where the community come in at. That's when you talk to your neighbors. You find out what's going on. You talk to Johnny, you talk to Sally, you talk to Sue. You make sure everybody's good. If they're not good, then you try to fix it or find a way to fix it. And that's just the way I am when it comes to my grandkids. I think it's 2 of them on the panel and one of their friends. If I can't help you, then I'm going to find help for you. And more adults need to understand that until it happened to them, they're never walking our shoes. They'll never understand until it happens to them. That's when we get the help after it happens to them. But we need help now. With the police department, mental health, social changes, economical growth, we need help now. There's nothing for our young people to do, you know, to keep their minds busy. You know, they took away the skating rings, the gyms, and all that. You know, they don't have anything to do. So we need to look at more ways to impact our community that make it a positive instead of a negative. That's all I have to say.
I'm going to open it to all of our young people as well. They have any advice on ways that our adults that are viewing this can be allies to your mission and your journey to end gun violence in this movement? If anybody wants to answer.
I can answer. Make sure that you're, like, as I said before, listening. Like, youth definitely need leadership. They need guidance. But being just told what to do is not going to help anyone, especially if I don't know you, if you've not built a relationship with me. Of course, you probably want to offer your old stories and everything that you want this child to understand. But if you never made an effort to build a connection with somebody, they're not going to listen to you. So as adults, make sure you're actually building connections with the youth that you want to change in your community. It's easy to see the news and be like, oh, these young people are doing terrible, but what are you doing about it? What are you doing to make sure that they're not doing terrible? Check in on their life, make sure they're good. After you built this connection, then you can tell me, okay, I think you should probably go here. You should probably study a little more today than yesterday. You can provide this after you've built the connection. So that's something that I just want adults to understand, is that actually build a connection. Don't talk at people, but talk to people.
Absolutely. It's not a dictatorship. We definitely need more adults standing beside us rather than standing in front of us or behind us in this movement as well. Zion, Kira, or Simone, do you have any advice for our adults?
The advice I would kind of give is to, I would piggyback off of Trayvon. I mean, yes, you should lend an open ear, but I would say really listen to them, because more than likely kids feel as if, their parents don't listen, or the adult figure they go to, they're not really hearing them. They're just talking over them, just talking to talk. Really listen, do more listening than you do of talking, because the worst thing for a child to feel is misheard or unheard at all, because then they will go and find someone else that'll listen, and that someone else might not have the best intentions, or they will go find something negative to go find that attention, because if they're not listening to them, that means they feel uncared for, they feel unwanted, and like that's really one of the worst things for a child to feel. And that's kind of where they go and they find trouble, they go and find these problems now. So I would really say listen to what that child is saying, because that could really stop something bad from happening.
Absolutely. Simone or Kira, do you have any advice for our adults?
I would say kind of like, so I had to have this conversation with my mom, because my mom, it started off with me. When I had my friends, I would bring my friends into the family and they would build really strong bonds with my family, my grandmother, and also my mom. And at first I was like, Mom, why are you bringing all these kids in? They're not your kids. But then she helped me understand that some of these people doesn't have that same, love and support like I do from my mom. And it kind of took me a while to realize it, because I was I'm such a possessive person, and I only like being around my mom. I don't like nobody else. I had to understand that not everybody has that. And you have to make sure you have that relationship and you have that bond to where when you come around, maybe with your friends, and some people don't like going home because school is their only way out, or activities is their only way of feeling stability and being able to keep their mind off things. You gotta have that environment to where people want to come around, people want to talk, not having to be forced to talk about their problems.
Absolutely. Kira, do you have anything to add on how adults can be allies to young people in this movement?
I could say that adults could really be allies to us just by being our friend. Just as well as we trust them with our lives, they should be able to trust us, just not as much as we trust them. Just make sure we have a helping hand and we connect on basically all parts, whether it's family issues, friend issues, just talking about school, because we all have been there before, and I know they have been there before, and they've been really living long enough. But an older person word really matter. They're more wise, and they can really teach us something.
Absolutely. And our last question is open to any of our panelists. How can our viewers join your fight against gun violence in Chicago?
For us, for the brave youth leaders, we are on Twitter. You can follow our Twitter page to stay up to date with our events. We also have Facebook, the Brave Youth Leaders. I want to say our name on Twitter is Be Brave Chicago. As well as you can call St. Sabina Church if you want to stay up to date, because St. Sabina is a full entity of many different violence prevention programs. We have job readiness programs for ex-felons. We have different food giveaways. We have Brave, of course, Purpose Over Pain. We have many different things going on throughout St. Sabina. So if you want to reach out and be able to lend a helping hand, you can just call St. Sabina and ask for the Brave Youth Leaders. And we're willing to take whatever resources can be given to us, whether that's just you letting us know what skills you may offer, because we may have you come in and just speak to people about connecting them with jobs, whether you have connections, anything. We're really willing to take anything to try to better the community. So you can just call St. Sabina or follow us on Twitter at Be Brave Chicago.
Absolutely. Zion, how can our viewers join the fight to end gun violence in Chicago?
I would say, they can actually, I would say do a lot of research. Do a lot of research because, for one, a lot of people don't really know what's going on. For those that don't watch the news, really will not know what's going on. Do research, learn what you can. After learning, not only look up ways to help. I would say I'm personally more of a petition fan. I would say write a petition, get people to sign it, and send it to those in power of guns, those organizations that sell guns to these distributors who give them out off the books. I would say do things like that, and not only just petitions, attend marches, attend webinars, just, kind of find different ways to do it. Don't just sit there and just be like, oh, I wanted to change and not do anything. I would say get online, get on social media, go into your community and actually have conversations with the community organizers in your community.
Absolutely. Simone, how can our viewers join the fight to end gun violence in Chicago?
Okay, so my family is very strong-headed minded. So when they feel that something needs to be done, they go out, handle it, make sure it's done, full force in. I'm shy, really, really shy. So I don't like talking. So like Zion says, do your research. Make sure your research is down packed. If you feel like you want to take action and have an event, do it. Just make sure you know your stuff, you ready to go. And any questions, any rebuttals, anything, you had that handle, you had that ready. And connections, make connections, talk to people, socialize. Because if you can't mediate and you can't talk to people, and that's the one thing I'm working on now, then you can't get far without talking to people and making those connections, even if you don't want to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Simone. And we only have time for one more question from our audience, because I believe we answered most of them. So I'm going to pass this one to Trayvon. I see Seth Kaplan is asking, how many folks got to see those who shot their friends and relatives brought to justice?
Okay, I just wanted to say, in response to that, my crime is still unsolved, just like many other gun violence crimes in Chicago. I don't think the statistics have changed much, but it used to be only 13% of Chicago killings, gun violence involved shootings were solved, as well as like only 5% of a shooting was solved. So if you get shot in Chicago, it's a 95% chance you won't get caught. And I just wanted to just put that out there that Chicago PD, as well as the detectives, are not doing a great job when it comes to solving our problems, when it comes to solving our crimes, when we lose our loved ones. We provided information. We had billboards and we gave a lot of information to the detectives, just like many other families that I know of, and we have received no response from the detectives, nor have we received justice in many of the killings that go on in Chicago. So I just wanted to touch on that right quick.
Thank you so much, Trayvon. We know that that's something that's common, not just in Chicago, but across the country. There's so many unsolved crimes and murders. For example, my uncle, his case has not even been touched, and that happened years ago. So that's an experience of a lot of young people and a lot of us, unfortunately. And we definitely need to apply pressure and make sure that those that have those jobs are actually doing their jobs, because that's what they're there for. So that's all that we have today. It's 7:59, so we don't really have much time to answer any of the questions in the box. But thank you all for coming and listening to this youth-oriented, action-oriented conversation on how we can address crime, guns, and gun violence within Chicago. Listening to youth voices from brave youth leaders, as well as Team Enough Chicago. And if you want to join our mission or join our fight, feel free to go on teamenough.org, as well as going to saintsabina.com, I believe, Trayvon, or searching up Brave Youth Leaders on Twitter and Instagram to get involved with Trayvon's mission as well. And also we have our national Brady/Team Enough conference coming up. So we'll have another youth-led conversation on our lobby collective and on racial justice coming up in November. So feel free to be on the lookout for that. We'll have a lot of youth faces talking about gun violence in their communities as well coming up in November. So thank you all for joining this conversation tonight, and I hope you all have a happy Sunday. Bye, everyone. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so much.
Yes.